for taking the time to contribute to this bill. I appreciate your helping out. I suppose when I look at the bill and I see the different approaches being taken to corporate governance and to accountability, I'm happy to support it, because I think that these type of reforms, type of changes are necessary and a lot more, but I'll go with the content of the bill. A lot more needs to be done to make the HSE accountable, to make it transparent, and to ensure that the public and its trust in the health services is restored. And we can only do that by taking action and by living by the word of the legislation. In my world of business, what gets counted gets done. And for far too long, we have had a lot going on in the HSE that was neither counted or being done. And any of the changes that were suggested on just off the cuff. Reform was introduced, but without the drivers for reform, in line with the legislation and the changes that are necessary, without those people being there to direct and change, there would be no change. And that's what has happened over the years. It has been, I suppose, legislation and actions that were taken in good faith, but that were never implemented to their full. So all you have to do is look back over the books of parliamentary questions, questions asked every day that this stall sits, and look at what the TDs are asking. You will find and see they're talking about medical cards and the delay in delivery. They are talking about appointments that are not being filled. They are talking people on the waiting lists that are waiting and waiting and waiting, way beyond an acceptable time limit. They're talking about complaints within the health service itself, the delivery of capital programmes, and so on. And as long as those questions are being asked, you can be sure, Minister, that it is the services or the capital spend or the accountability and the transparency that we all talk about is not being delivered in the counties or in the regions or nationally. And that is a fact, and it's undeniable. So in terms of the delivery of services, and this is how people will measure it, older people that are in hospital beds, that are waiting to be discharged to go home, their families are given a care plan. They're told, we will look after you from Monday to Sunday. These are the hours that you can expect. But they're no sooner home, in the family home, to be looked after, than they find out that none of this is true. None of it is true. They will get maybe a fraction of the hours that they have been promised. A fraction of it. And that is not acceptable. But what's even more perverse is the fact that the families, I would say, are conned into believing that they're going to get the services when they're not. And it's putting massive pressure on families who want to contribute to the care of their loved one, who will put in the hours themselves, but they are restricted by what they can do and they need the support. These families should be supported, and they should be told exactly what they're going to get. And I would love to know where the thousands upon thousands of hours that have been allocated to the services for the care of people at home, I wonder where they're all gone. I don't see them being implemented or used in terms of Carlow and Kilkenny. I just see a list of people coming into my office that are complaining, not that they haven't got the hours, but they haven't got the hours that they were promised when they were taking their loved one home. Neither have they received the supports in terms of hoists or wheelchairs or the other provisions that would make life easier for them and their families at home. And I would ask you, Minister, to take a serious, deep look at what is happening in relation to the delivery of those services and what is happening to those hours. Now, the other theme that runs through health services is the ambulance service. You can't talk about the health service without the ambulance services. And I know some of the drivers. I've met them. I've met the paramedics in Carlow, in their headquarters. I know there's an investment in terms of capital going on there. But the stories that patients, that drivers, that paramedics will tell you about turning up to a scene or to a house or to a random location that will be 2 or 3 hours away from when the call was made. So for 3 hours, whatever happened to cause the ambulance to come, it's been there for 3 hours waiting. I had a gentleman that wrote to me recently, and he said in Patrick Street, Kilkenny, a man had a heart attack. They were so much delay in terms of the ambulance coming that they rang the guards. Hours later, the ambulance came to find out that the guards had taken away the gentleman that had the heart attack. That is and that's not uncommon. I was in another location in Kilkenny and witnessed it for myself, where 2 ambulances turned up. I mean, what kind of service is that? And what kind of waste is that? Where is the governance? Where is the transparency there? I spoke to a lady yesterday who was on a trolley in St. Luke's Hospital in Kilkenny. 2 days she was on it. Now, the last 2 days were particularly warm, and yet she was on a trolley in the corridor with full heating on, a full blast of heating, and there was no way that it could be turned down. Her request just fell on deaf ears. It's a small thing, but what does it tell the public about an organisation that disregards the complaints that were made, and what household would not turn down their heat if they were conscious of the cost of heating, let alone the effects of it when you're in a confined space. In terms of capital money being spent, SOS in Kilkenny, a fine organisation celebrating 50 years on Thursday, they were told that they would have an extra €1.6 million in their budget. They were delighted with the news. It hasn't been paid yet. It just hasn't been paid. And I'd like to know, where is that money? I'd like to know why Jock Tom, who provides the services to those that are mentally challenged, usually as a matter of urgency, they haven't got the money that they were promised. €50,000. It's nickels and dimes in the context of the €26 billion or €27 billion that the health services get. If you look at the planning in the health services, why have they not planned for endometriosis and the care of those women? Why has that not been planned and staged and developed so that we don't have that kind of debate that we had last night, and that the difficulties that women face, that they are dealt with? I dealt with a group of women who were here in relation to the vaginal mesh issue, and they couldn't get a pathway to care. I mean, that's just shocking that we would allow the citizens of this state to be treated like that. We should be to the fore in the delivery of services to people that need them, particularly when we're looking at 26.9 billion or whatever it is in terms of the overall budget. And if you look at the infrastructure within the HSE, Castlecomer Hospital, for example, is a leading light in the delivery of care of those that are in most need, that are of a particular age. And they have to fight for the funding. The full upstairs of that building is empty and could be developed. No, you have to fulfil fire requirements and all of that, but all of it could be done in this modern age. So you're not even taking the best model in class. You're just ignoring the best model and moving to a private sector, care of the elderly. Now, Thomastown is another hospital, state-of-the-art hospital being built, a wonderful facility, wonderful facility. I would like to see more public facilities, more public hospitals caring for the elderly. I would feel a little bit more comfortable in that setting than I would in a private setting. And the recent expose on television has frightened the life out of those that are in care, those that are going into care, and the families involved. We have to restore that trust. And it is only action and investment and delivery that will restore the trust that I'm talking about. In terms of the IT investment and an organisation of that size asking for money, and I go back to my original comment, what gets counted gets done. What has been changed in relation to the IT systems? Do they now talk to each other? Are they now fully taking up every piece of spend that goes on in the HSE? And do they know what they're asking for in terms of where that money is going to go should they get it? In other words, is the budget real? Is it based on fact? And should we go back perhaps to zero budgets to make sure that whoever asks you for the money, whatever hospital, whatever organisation, that they must provide in an appropriate plan that will be delivered within budget and on time. And the one message I would want to leave you with, Minister, is this. Care of the elderly and the marginalised is absolutely paramount in terms of my politics and my response to people. And I want to see the direction within the HSE change so that it is fully inclusive of all services that are being delivered to the marginalised and to the elderly. And my last point is this. Complaints in hospitals should be answered by the chief executive, or sorry, the manager of the facility. Too many complaints are being totally ignored. Instead of learning from them, they cover them up.
Thank you, Deputy